Welcome back to my mental health and crime channel. This is the case of the Idaho quadruple murders. This is for entertainment purpose only. This is the traffic stop of Brian Christopher KOHBERGER. The female cop stopped him in front of Washington Pullman, I think the university, Washington University. This is his insurance, I believe. It's going to expire on the 22nd of November. And he was stopped, I believe, somewhere in October. I wanted to compare Brian Christopher KOHBERGER's voice with the young man called Dave, who called in REV, because he said that some Sigma Chi or Sigma Chi fraternity boys asked him if they were going to unlive someone, how would they get away with it? Let's not forget that Brian Christopher KOHBERGER did a research when he was doing his bachelor's in psychology, I think criminal psychology. He put out a research in Reddit asking criminals to join in. He had questions like, did you plan it before you committed the murders? How did you feel? Did you clean up after you? Questions like that. But I heard from a professor on Creme TV saying that it's quite normal, the research for criminology students. But he was doing psychology at that time, and I know in mental health that is quite abnormal. To start with, when we do our dissertation and we have to do research, we have to get the confirmation from the university. So the topic has to be something that is suitable, something that is mindful, respectful, something that doesn't trigger up our clients / patients. For whatever purpose he did the research, I was wondering if he actually got candidates to participate in it, like the Sigma Chi fraternity boys. I was wondering, what if Brian Christopher KOHBERGER is involved, but the reason that they can't get any blood evidence is because he didn't commit the crimes. He told the Sigma Chi boys how to do it, and he could have possibly lent them his K-bar knife that had his touch DNA. So let's listen to his voice here, and then we compare it to REV'S. Wow.
I'm Officer Langus. Stops being audio and video recorded. I think you know why I stopped you. You ran the red light.
What actually happened was I was stuck in the middle of the intersection.
Yeah,
so
I was behind you the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So technically you're not supposed to enter the intersection at all for that reason, because if the light turns red, then you're stuck in the intersection, and then you run the red light. So that's the reason I stopped you. Do you have your license on you?
Yep.
Do you have the registration and insurance?
We just got this figured out.
You what?
I'm just gonna get this out for you.
Okay.
So would would you explain that to me a little bit further? So in Pennsylvania, when you're stuck in an intersection, you have to make the left. So what would the appropriate thing for me to have done? Just
You're not supposed to block an intersection like that in Washington, so just by you blocking the intersection, that's technically a ticketable violation, and then then you're running a red light, so it's another ticketable offense. So you're not supposed to proceed into the intersection until you can go, because a lot of people do what you just did, right? Is like you're sitting in the intersection waiting, and then turns, and then you're blocking, so.
Yeah, there was a little bit of confusion with speeding because someone had stopped. I wasn't sure what they were doing, and then they put on their light to turn. Mm-hmm. So I thought that maybe they were letting me go through.
Oh.
Did you see that?
No. Mm-mm.
I feel like right before I made the turn, there was someone who made a right. They didn't have their signal on, so I wasn't sure if they were just waiting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I would just advise just don't enter the intersection until you can go, so you don't get stuck. Let's see.
But in that situation, the best thing to do then would be back up. And not...
I don't know if there's a best thing to do in that situation, because you're either going to back up into somebody, or you're going to run a red light. So, or you're going to be sitting in an intersection. There's not really a great option there.
Yeah, I was just slightly into the crosswalk, so... Where I'm from Pennsylvania, we actually don't have, like, crosswalks.
Oh.
So even if you're kind of slightly... Yeah, there's a little bit more leeway as well. Like, there are a few lines. Like, there's one white line, and there's another one. Like, there's like a certain margin from which you can actually kind of place your vehicle.
Yeah, so I know laws vary state to state, but there is a law in Washington for blocking an intersection like that, proceeding through when when you're just stalling. I forget the actual verbiage, I can find it for you, but it's like stalling, blocking an intersection.
Yeah. I'm just curious about the law. I don't mean to...
Oh, no, yeah, I can find it for you. Yeah. One second. That looks good on a Hyundai. I don't see Pennsylvania registration like at all. Okay, let's see. Expires November 22nd, or 2022. Okay. And...
Yeah, one of those is actually...
Yeah, okay, that looks good. I'll hand that back to you. I'm just going to go check your info. I'll try to find that RCW, the law for you, and I'll be right back.
Thank you.
All right.
I personally believe that Brian Christopher KOHBERGER speaks in a very respectful manner, mindful, professionalism. I see somebody who's trying to learn the laws in Washington Pullman because he's from Pennsylvania. This call was made to REV'S channel. Please like, share, subscribe to him. This is for fair use purpose. I wanted to compare the man that calls in. He says his name is Dave. I wanted to compare Dave's voice to Brian Christopher KOHBERGER's voice. I wonder if Brian Christopher KOHBERGER didn't commit the quadruple murders, but he knew who did it, the Sigma Chi fraternity boys and the other people around, and he could have helped them by lending them the K-bar knife. And he could have found out later on that they forgot the knife sheath there. It's just a thought.
Dave.
Hey, what's up, Dave? You live?
Hey, what's up, man? Is this T-Rev?
Yes, sir. What's going on?
Not much, man. I found you today. I watched your live earlier this afternoon and been watching this one. And the thing that strikes me kind of weird about all this is that I live in a college town, and I've worked with probably at least 10 Sigma Chi members. And, you know, the one thing that every single one of them, I feel like has asked me is, if you were going to kill somebody, how would you get away with it? And I just wonder if maybe this is nothing more than some kid in a fraternity trying to prove himself. And that was it.
So you said you worked with 5 or 6 Sigma Chi kids, and they asked you if you can kill somebody, they can get away with it?
Yeah.
Did I hear that right?
Yeah. And I know that's a thing that just like maybe people say, trying to like have interesting conversation, but like just in my head, it's like it's always been these dudes that were in the fraternity. And so it makes me wonder if it's a thing that's in their like culture that they ask to see how smart you are and whatever, and what kind of answer you come up with, and someone took it too far.
Oh, wow. What kind of dudes would ask you that?
Well,
that's crazy as shit, man. That's an outrageous statement, man. I'd write their names down.
Yeah, man. Like you know, I like horror movies and all that kind of stuff, and I'll watch those kind of things. But like when someone like in person says some stuff like that, it's kind of like jarring. It's like, what? Why are you saying something like that?
It's a very unusual situation that we have on our hands here. The crime scene itself, what was seemingly and apparently random, and now we have a young man, Larry Kobelinski, 28 years of age, who has studied criminology for a long time and is a very even demeanor, according to authorities, while in custody and only asking a single question as reported, has anyone else been arrested? How does it complicate the analysis of dealing with someone with his kind of skills and background?
Well, it's hard because he studied criminal justice, obviously, and he studied crime, and he's even done surveys to see how people felt as they were committing crimes. It seems that what I heard in this TikTok presentation is that he was into drugs even as a young person. And this might explain the rage and the passion and the terrible stabbing that he did to these 4 students. And this might explain the rage and the passion and the terrible stabbing that he did to these 4 students. And he may have been on stimulants. He may have progressed from heroin, which is more down, to amphetamines and cocaine and things of that sort. And that might explain the viciousness of the attack.
At the end of the day, we only know what authorities can show. And as tantalizing as it may be, his background, his criminology studies, and how he appears in pictures and from reports, they're going to have to show what for this to stick?
Well, they're going to have to show that it was, they believe they're charging him with first degree, so they're going to have to show that it was premeditated, that it wasn't a situation where he just ended up in that room, there was a scuffle, and this terrible scene happened. They're going to have to show that this was planned in order for a first degree murder conviction to stick, and I think that the autopsy reports showing that these victims were likely asleep when they were first stabbed, at least, which is absolutely terrible. I think that that's going to take care of that, the chance that anybody could argue that it wasn't premeditated, because obviously if you're going and stabbing people that are sleeping, there's only really one reason to do that. So I think just with those bare facts, it's a very, very strong case for a first degree argument. I don't think that there's much that a defense is going to be able to argue that it wasn't premeditated. Now, getting into the history of drugs, the long history of drugs, obviously, since he was in high school, maybe even before then, there could very well be a mental health defense. There could be a defense about he didn't have the capacity at the time to form that intent. And that's where the argument is going to be, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, literally, like, I before I even called, I counted on my hands, like, how many of these guys I can remember that I worked with at this bar, and there's like 10 of them. I swear that question has always come up, and it could just be nothing. Like, maybe people say that, but it makes me wonder if that's a part of that thing, and like someone just took that question and that idea and like took it too far. Like, oh, I'm going to prove to these guys that I'm in the club or whatever.
So let me hear this right. You said you were working with 6 Sigma Chi guys, and they said how could they get away with killing somebody?
Yeah, more like 10. But they would say that to me. They would say, like,
You are fake news.
if you were going to kill somebody, how would you get away with that?
And
You know?
what are these guys' names?
Well, I'm not going to...
Let me get come on, drop 2 or 3 of them, first and last.
First and last?
That's a broad statement. I mean, you're calling me with this information when you should be on the phone with the police.
Well, I'm in a different state.
I don't care if you're in Mexico. If that's the case, and the people from the Sigma Chi told you that how could you get away with murder? I mean, I'd be on the phone telling them that.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is maybe it's like an exercise of like, if you were going to make pasta for 100 people, how would you like prepare, how would you like execute that? Like, it's not like they're actually asking you because they want to do it. It's more like, how smart are you? How good are you? That's what I'm getting at, is that maybe they're saying, I'm going to present you with this question and see like how, capable you are like with problem solving and this and that. And maybe somebody at that fraternity took that question and took it too far.
So you're saying, so you were saying you were in Moscow.
No, I wasn't in Moscow. No, I'm in a different state.
So, but you're saying you're in a different state, but you just said Sigma Chi house people, that's how they would get away with murder. So how would somebody ask you that if you're in a different state? Where did that come from?
I guess what
you went from 5 to 10, so I mean, honestly, it doesn't even say, it sounds inconsistent.
No, I worked with at least 10 Sigma Chi members, but it was in a different state, not in Moscow, in a different state. I'm just saying maybe the culture of that fraternity, like they have questions that they ask, and maybe somebody took that question too literally and too seriously as a way to prove themselves.
And
what do y'all think? Could that be Brian Christopher Kohlberger? He could have a voice change or something, a way to change his voice. Because Brian Christopher Kohlberger speaks very softly. You all saw that when he was speaking to the police officer, the woman. And this Dave guy seems to be speaking softly too. So if this was Brian, and if he's telling the truth, then it makes sense that he could have lent them his knife. That's how the knife sheet got there, and it was the Sigma Chi boys who committed the crimes. He was waiting outside, or he passed by because he remembered that they didn't give him the knife sheet. because we heard Chris Comer saying in News Nation, though they ain't the best sources, but Brian Christopher KOHBERGER allegedly said, "Has anyone else been arrested?" I believe the Sigma Chi fraternity boys are involved because of the four figures running. And the boys in Banfield, Stop and Saeed, whatever he is watching, look like Kaylee sitting in the position her mother and father spoke about. May she rest in peace. Let me know if you think this is Brian. Because I believe that thought makes a bit sense. You could have done that research that he did on Reddit and got participants from there. Look at this car. It is a Hyundai, I believe. This car was always in front of Jack D's house. And look at that SUV behind, or the truck, or whatever it is. It looks quite all right. I wonder if that is what Enan Harsh was talking about that night that he saw. This was the Hyundai Elantra that was seen near the gas station. You can see it has tinted windows. And this looks like the car, the Hyundai that is parked in front of Jack D's house. You see Jack D on the roof. And you see Adam downstairs and somebody else. I wonder if the black SUV is what Enan could have been talking about. And then you see that white pickup vehicle at the left, the first one. That one looks like the one that was driving towards the Corner Club when Kaylee, Maddie, and Jack Short were walking. So there are 3 vehicles that are in front of his house. At least on this side, right in front of his house. I wonder if that white Hyundai was used, or whichever car it may be. How come Murphy wasn't hurt? He was barking. Usually a killer, trigger warning, doesn't bother about a pet or about a human being, because they're in the process of unliving anyone and everything, even a pet, that can come in the way of being caught. So how come Murphy had no DNA on him? Did the killer know Murphy? The police don't even know if Murphy was taken out to the scene and brought out later. But when the police arrived, Murphy was in Kaylee's room. And I believe Kaylee was sleeping in her room, actually. She heard Maddie yelling, and she came to check, and something happened there. She ended up in the bed on the sitting position while defending herself. Poor victims, may they rest in peace. Why was Jack D the last person to be ruled out? Trigger warning. Talking about large knife. Find this picture to be very interesting. Even if she took it for fun, why would you take pictures with knives and mask? What is wrong with Dylan? This is just my opinion and thoughts. She seems to have a scary side of her. What was Dylan and Bethany Funk actually doing when the murders happened? Because the chief said the surviving roommates are not witness, they were just there. That is what he clearly said in the first press conference. Dylan was supposed to be sleeping downstairs in the first floor. But after 49 days, Brian Christopher Kohlberg was arrested and Dylan was said to be a witness sleeping on the second floor. How could you change that so quickly? From first floor to second floor, Dylan was sleeping, but now she's awake and she witnessed a man with bushy eyebrows, athletically built. The house is old, it makes noises, and Dylan's trying to say she wasn't afraid. She opened the door thrice. Could one of the surviving roommates have let the person in? Because I find it strange that there are two surviving roommates, that they were not targets, and Murphy was alive. Could this have been something that happened inside with the roommates? Allegedly, I'm just asking. But this is really concerning because this is not the first time Dylan is seen with knives and sharp objects. Plenty of them, but I don't need to get a strike from YouTube. But this is just something to think about. Why did Xana want to change the locks? Was she threatened by one of us roommates, one of the surviving roommates? Or was she threatened by the surviving roommates' boyfriends, like Quincy? Something wasn't right. This is one of the 3 unidentified male DNAs. Was there a struggle in the living room? Because the good vibes is in the living room and there's one in Katie's room, but this one was the one in the living room. The glove outside is the second, and the van shoe print, Latin shoe print, is the third. The knife sheet is the main one. Was BK involved? It's important to ask those questions because I personally believe that either BK was somehow involved by maybe participating in the research that he made allegedly, and he conducted it and led these people on live, the students. That's a possibility. If it's true BK asked if there was anyone, if the others were arrested, then I really believe that BK did not do these crimes. He sent these boys to do the crimes because they had beef, anger, revenge. For the 3 targets, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan. Jovita and Hoodie Guy, Jack Schwalter, must have really irritated Maddie. This is when she points her finger towards Jovita and she says, "You, mister." Then she says the F word, the F-bomb. Kaylee was trying to avoid looking at Shawalter.
Hi, Heather Roberts with ABC News. Just to follow up on what she asked, so the other 2 roommates were there at the time of the attack?
All the information that we have from our investigation is that yes, they were.
Okay, but they were unhurt.
That's correct.
So is there any explanation as to why it took so long then for someone to call 911? You have surviving witnesses to an incident at 3 or 4 in the morning, and the 911 call didn't come until noon?
I don't think I ever said that they were witnesses. I said they were there. So, you know, we don't know why that call came in at noon and not in the middle of the night. Would have we loved for that to have happened? Yes, but that's not how it took place. So that's why we're investigating everything still to try to pull all the pieces together.
Were they one of the people, were they the 911 caller?
At this point in time, I'm not going to divulge who our 911 caller is, just because I want to keep the integrity of the investigation at this point, okay?
Okay, and last question, are you able to tell whether the same weapon was used on all 4 victims?
You know, that's why we're having the autopsies done. The autopsy will confirm that and hopefully collect some evidence for us, even from those. That's why you do the autopsies, is to try to be thorough and try to gather more. So we'll leave that would probably be something that would come out later.
I found this post on New York Post. A former university professor, BRYAN KOHBERGER, said, "The accused killer was one of my best students ever, and that then master's candidate was only of only 2 students she has recommended to a PhD program." Imagine that. He was one of her best students, and he was one of the only 2 that she recommended in the PhD program. Michelle Berger, 33, an associate professor at DeSales University in Pennsylvania, told the Daily Mail that KOHBERGER, who was arrested in the murders of 4 University of Idaho students, was a great writer and brilliant student. See, we're learning something new about KOHBERGER. In my 10 years of teaching, I've only recommended 2 students to a PhD program, and he was one of them. He was one of my best students ever. Everyone is in shock over this, she told the outlet, adding that he was always perfectly professional with her. Yes, she is perfect. Yeah. So it is the Catholic school he went to in DeSales. And he does seem to be very respectful when he talks. Because let's not forget, he's been charged with these murders, but he hasn't been sentenced or anything for these murders. And I'm glad they asked to change their revenue, because I think this is too close to home, to the victim's place. People have already judged KOHBERGER in the world without even knowing him or knowing his past history. I do understand that he's had drug addiction, but that doesn't make him any less of a person. Although that could have caused him mental health issues, allegedly. But he managed to come back after his addiction and rehabilitation. He came back, finished his master's and then his PhD program. Just because he didn't have friends or many friends or anything like that, it doesn't make him an incel or anything like that. People have judged him too quickly from the beginning when the timeline doesn't even make sense. I've always believed that KOHBERGER definitely has something to do with this because of his phone being switched off, him being around the area. But the question is, did he go inside the house and unalive the 4 people? Or was he part of helping these people to conduct his to help him to basically help KOHBERGER. KOHBERGER would be helping them to live their fantasies, like the 4chan article said, that the two Davids, especially David B., talked a lot about unliving people and death and all those things. And David Lott had beef with E and Zano. Could they have borrowed Brian Christopher KOHBERGER's knife? And they forgot the knife sheet on purpose so that they could put the blame on him. That makes him guilty too, but that means the others involved who actually did the unlivings. And I find it interesting that Murphy and the two surviving roommates were unharmed. This is the professor who said Brian Christopher KOHBERGER was the best student. She said she only recommended 2 students in the PhD program, and he was one of them. That was in DeSales University, a private Catholic university in Center Valley, Pennsylvania. I wonder if Ann Taylor got enough evidence from the house before it was demolished.
That he was going for his PhD studies at Washington State University. With your background in criminology, is there anything that you can share in terms of the suspect? Does it make sense with somebody that you thought like aligned with a potential suspect profile? I guess walk me through this major development in the case with your knowledge in the subject.
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing that's interesting about this, as somebody who got my PhD in criminology and justice in 2018 and is now a professor in the field, you know, a lot has been made of this research study that has come out from Reddit that he reportedly, and many news outlets are saying that he was part of, saying, you know, oh, this is so creepy, this is very eerie. And I recognize why that would look eerie. But in our field, that study is actually very par for the course. So in criminology, the interest is in motivation and understanding why people commit all types of crimes, right? So that study in and of itself does not necessarily raise any red flags. I currently teach a media crime and justice class. Many of my students are very, very interested in, why people commit crime, serial killers, all sorts of things like that. I myself took a serial killers and psychopaths class in my master's degree program, and, the whole class was very interested in the topic. So interest alone is not necessarily a red flag. What it does tell me about him is that he likely has a strong understanding of the criminal justice system here in the United States, and he likely has a strong understanding of what's going to be coming next. He very likely understands the media attention that is going to be brought to him and to this case. And so, as somebody who studies media and crime, I'm definitely kind of bracing myself for this next part, because this is the part of the case where generally so much focus goes to him.